So we're here with the composer and book writer and lyricist of The Wedding Night, which was part of the Hollywood Fringe Festival. You guys would introduce yourselves to our...
I'm Stephen Coleman, and I'm the composer of The Wedding Night.
I'm Jana Hejdukova, I'm the book writer.
And I'm Keith Gordon, the lyricist.
Excellent. Keith, where are you right now?
I'm in New York City right now.
You're in New York, yeah. Stephen and Jana and I are in Los Angeles, but we're recording this, electronically, so you guys can meet the whole team. So, Stephen, how did you link up with your collaborators?
So, Jana and I are married, so that's how I linked up with her.
Right,
but
kind of collaboration.
Jana is Czech, and we last summer were doing the book writing workshop here with Elise, and because initially I just wanted to learn more about book writing so I can be a better collaborator as a composer. And Jana decided she wanted to do it, and she can talk more about it, but she had these Czech poems that she had read that have never been done as a musical, at least certainly not in English. Huh. And she just had the idea to do it, and we heard about the Fringe Festival, and we were like, oh, doing one of those for the Fringe Festival would be a great idea. It's like perfect length, sort of a short story poem into like 20-minute show. And then I was thinking, well, who could we get to do lyrics? And Keith and I met each other a while ago. It's probably over 20 years ago. Nice. In New York at the BMI workshop. I went to school, Manhattan School of Music in New York, and I met Keith there. And we wrote together for about maybe a couple of years, something like that, on various things. And we hadn't actually worked together since. And so I saw him maybe a year ago when I had this children's musical I was thinking about doing, but that hasn't really panned out yet. But I was like, oh, let's do the Fringe Festival together. So that's how, and Keith luckily had time to do it.
And your current background is, what are you working on? This is your chance to brag.
Oh, okay. So, well, now I work as a film orchestrator. I write some music, kind of ghostwriting on films and TV shows and stuff. But I work for a lot of the better composers these days. A lot of the more famous guys, anyway. And they're do Game of Thrones, about to do Jumanji, and Captain America 2. But I'm always the orchestrator and not really the composer. And I've always tried to keep an eye on the fact that what I really want to do is write a musical. And so I'm kind of trying to really get back into that now.
And Keith, what do you work on?
Working on a variety of projects. A couple of musicals, one that's based on the novel Mary Modern that I optioned a little while back. And working on The Wedding Night with Stephen and Jana, and The Shadow Sparrow, a project I had at the O'Neill a few years ago, and some other things. So lots of different things, different collaborators.
And Keith is a very, very talented composer. And he's a composer. He might even describe that that's his primary thing he does, or maybe just doing both. But so I'm quite lucky that he allowed me to write the music and graced us with his wonderful lyrics.
I see. No wonder the lyrics are so poetic and so musical. Right.
Well, thank you. It's a terrific collaboration. We knew that because we collaborated before, and Stephen's music is just gorgeous. So it's not how I write, and collaborating with someone who does something different than what you do, it's always wonderful. So
Stephen's music is gorgeous. That's not the way I write.
He writes differently than I do. I write gorgeous differently.
That's right.
Yeah.
And Jana, did you start by writing a play adaptation of the poem? What was your first?
No, it was meant to be that I converted the poem into what would be usable for a musical. Mm-hmm. That was the aim of the workshop. So that was with that in mind from the start.
Right.
And it was supposed to be a full-length musical, so it was a script for a book for I picked 3 stories out of, I don't know how many there are, 11 maybe, that I thought kind of went together well, had like a similar message, similar theme. And then Stephen picked one of them for the short musical, but we were actually, I was personally more excited about one of the other 2, because it's, in my opinion, like the most dramatic one of the three. So
that's funny. That I agree with her. That one's very exciting. You can talk more about what the story is for that. That's a little bit more what we want to do in the future. But that one was so complicated that I was like, I want to write the slightly easier one to write first. This one has a lot of very deep emotions, and also I wasn't at all sure you could fit it in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So that one is sort of if we do extend it like we want to, what we'd like to do is extend it to 3 parts and have it be a full length one. That one, we'd have a little intro one, then the wedding night would end up being the second half of the first act. And then the third story, which is it's about this guy who lives at the bottom of a lake, so this goblin figure. She can talk about it more, but that would theoretically be an hour long because it's much more complicated of a story. But so we
is it one Czech poet that wrote all 12 of those?
Yes, it was in the 19th century when the Czech language itself was being kind of rediscovered, because the official language at that time, Czech language was used, was looked down upon and kind of disrespected and not really used officially. And there was this big national effort to give it, do it justice. And so Karel Jaromír Erben was one of those who went to the source, to the villages, to the people. And he collected the stories that they were telling each other through centuries. And they did different things with it. They wrote books using those stories. Different writers did different things. And he collected these stories and made them into poems. Wow. So it's a very old, traditional, Czech heritage, really, very important. It was done as a musical. It was in Czech, using the poems themselves.
Oh, the actual text.
Yes, right. It's a little bit of a, brave thing to do, to just take the story, because the poems are so sacred. You would not mess with those in Czech. Steven's like, can we translate our musical into Czech? I'm like, I cannot do that. I would be crucified.
You feel like taking the famous lines out of Hamlet and kind of going, hey, here's that version that you kind of messed with. No. Here you go back to.
So and how did you try to have any of the Czech flavor of the linguistic flavor in ultimately the lyrics and the libretto, or did you not? You just say, we're just going to take the story and the aura, but not the sound?
I think both. We tried for both. There is an English translation of, you have side by side Czech and English version of the whole collection that Keith read.
Right. I was going to say, did you look at that, Keith?
Yes, looked at the entire poem, not in Czech, but in English. And we did work really hard. I think it's so fascinating that this is a poem from the mid 1800s. But to me, the storytelling, at least to an American ear, but I think kind of to an international ear, is very fresh and very interesting and very current, because it's not quite as linear as a lot of the storytelling we hear today. So sticking to that and being very true to the overall tone and the language, I think, is what gave it its really distinct voice. So we kept going back to that and thinking, is this really retaining the tone and the mood of it, or are we trying to update or Americanize this too much? And that was something that we worked a lot during the collaboration to retain.
How much did that evolve during the development process and then during the rehearsal process? Your original text.
Well, I had to defend it a little bit, because certain aspects I trusted that it's going to come out great, and I wanted them to stay that way. But for American ears and eyes and brains, it was like, no, we have to make it clear. Or, not from Keith or Stephen necessarily, but generally people think, oh, it's dark, or, we should know at the end what exactly happened. And to me, that's a difference between Czechs and Americans. We don't need it, because that's really not how life is. We are comfortable not knowing.
I remember there was a discussion about the difference between an ambiguous ending, which is, you know, it could be this or it could be that. It could be its way, as opposed to which is a more of an American approach than. We're not really even sure what happened. It's sort of like all at once, which is not ambiguous, but just a little more vague, a little more abstract. And how do you feel at the end of the day? Did you get pushed into being more ambiguous and less abstract? Or are you happy with what you did?
I think it depends.
Not a leading question.
I think it depends. A lot of it depends on audience.
Yeah.
If your imagination is good and healthy, then you can see it as ambiguous.
Yeah.
If you just like your Disney-fied happy ending, then you're like, what is this? Then it's vague. And so depends on the person, I think. Yeah.
And it was quite interesting because that was one of the particular ones. Everyone was like, "How does this show end?"
Right,
you know, and the father shows up, and it's dawn, and how does it end, and how do we wrap it up? And Jana was quite insistent. You know, she's like, you know, the poem leaves it as an open question,
right? And
that was quite interesting to do that. And I feel like it worked every night.
Because I do too. As a composer, though, did you feel like I need to resolve the story. The story is like, and a major chord, and the dissonance is like, wow.
That was quite interesting. And actually, that was quite interesting. I'm like, what do I do with this ending thing? And I kind of did all this kind of. It was nice. I had like a little vocal line. I had all this kind of gurgling in the piano where these little waves of dissonance would happen.
That was just the pianist.
That was the pianist. Yeah. I mean, in fact, actually. Played it kind of wanted to kind of they kind of actually wanted to like make something of all the because it's quite hard like the and I kind of like just bubbling like real quiet and then I finally found because everything in these poems happen in threes that's like an ongoing thing I think with all the poems and so certainly at the end of when she closes the shed door we have three big chords but so I always knew I was going to end it with three quiet chords which makes it kind of an operatic ending but I found the right chord actually, which was this thing of this majors minor, and I had it. So the whole thing's in D flat and G flat. I'm like just flatting everything, like and all the pianists like the double flats everywhere. I'm like, I know, but once I'm in G flat minor, then
is that what they teach you in orchestration school? Like when in doubt, just
I don't know. I just kept.
Wonder you got the thing on.
Exactly. And
kids don't try this at home.
No, it's too many flats. I mean, the E double flat major 7 is really never needs to be seen. But I figured on the last chord, and it's basically D flat major, except the very right pinky note instead of an A flat on top was an A natural, and it's just like it feels really calm, especially when the cello played it, really calm. But that little A natural is like a little hint of a question mark, and it really when you play it 3 times, it's like, well, that's it.
Yeah,
it's like it's a question mark. But it had a feeling of finality, and really like it's over. Right. But it is like, what did you see? What did you just see? What did you just see? And every night I felt like there's a little bit of electricity to that. Yeah. It's really original because you didn't go boom. Right. So it was.
Yeah, and I think all three of us were that was something all three of us were very mind locked about. That was really important to retain. And it actually makes it more satisfying, especially for a shorter piece, to have something for the audience know that you were in really good hands with the writers, but also have this open-ended sort of, well, did it happen this way or this way? And it leaves you something to discuss after you've seen it. And I do think it just makes it more satisfying. Interestingly, I just watched the 3rd season of Fargo, and they do something very similar. The very last scene is left with 2 people who are completely opposed to each other, and they both think the future is going to turn out their way, and you don't know how it turns out. And it's really satisfying.
Very neat. Very neat. So, and how was it realizing it without a lot of scenery and props and costumes? There was some. Was that a hindrance? Was that a plus at this level?
For me, I always sort of imagined it as I was writing it that you've got like the greatest set in the world. Yeah. And I always try to write the music like the music is going to tell the story. And but when you actually got into the black box theater, our director Joshua did a great job with that. He really did. He was using a bench as a door. And I was like, what, we can't have a door? And it's like, no, it's Fringe Festival, you don't get a door. And I'm like, so, but it really worked. And sort of crawling over the boxes and all of it. It was really very good. And it sounded good. It was, we ended up deciding later on to add the cello. I always thought it'd be nice to add the cello, but it was about just before rehearsal started, we were like, oh, let's add the cello. So, it really sounded quite good in the theater.
Yeah, I think when you're writing, when you know you're going to be in a black box space and you don't have the luxury of a set or a lot of costumes or even a lot of room, the onus is on the writing. So it has to be in the music and lyrics and book. And if your story isn't there, it's just not going to come through. So you have to be extra disciplined. And I think we knew that was kind of the immediate goal with this. And if the onus is on the writing, you have to put it in there.
Excellent. And the stuff that you defended, were you able to defend it to the end? Did it make it there, or there a couple you feel like didn't quite get what I wanted?
I tried to be very, very mindful and open-minded about what to defend. I really tried to reduce it to absolutely like crucial things.
Right.
Because at the same time while directing, I'm aware that I don't have to have the best ideas all the time. So even stuff that was like, at first I'm like, I don't know about this. If I don't have a strong feeling about it, I don't speak against it until giving it a chance. So one thing that did happen, and it's unavoidable, I guess, because there's a dead guy who, shows up, died. We made it that he died that day. We don't really know in the poem.
Oh, interesting, because I love that moment. I love the specificity of that.
Yes, that's not in the poem.
Oh,
that's,
I like that
that's
addition.
specific for the musical.
Yeah.
But so Americans go straight to, okay, he's a vampire or he's a zombie. Okay, they have all these like American names for who he is. And to me, that rubs me the wrong way big time, but I see it as that's what the culture is. Like, I don't blame anyone for doing it, but this like difficulty with seeing him just for who he is and linking it with and stuff, that it's not that at all, but
it's just America's tendency to appropriate anything we can. We'll take death. That's ours. Thank you. You can't have it.
Yes. So, but that's kind of comes with doing it.
But in general, I was just going to say, writing for that size theater, the only thing I would say we had to do, and it wasn't even for time, is that I wrote quite a lot of swirly intros before they start waltzing, and we kept having to cut those. So actually, we're thinking about doing a recording of it in a month, and I probably want to reinstate it. Yeah, restore. It was just like little 8 bars, but it made the waltz pay off more for me. Like when he's like grabbing the necklace off the neck, and I started I was doing all this stuff, and it's too much.
The 17.5-minute constraint, if we were to pull that off for production now you have however long it needs to be, so long as it can fit in the first half of act. How much longer do you think? How much more expanding?
Well, we were talking about it. I mean, I don't think it should expand too much. I mean, there was a whole conversation of, this one story could be full length, but Jana adamantly hates that idea. And I think I would actually say, I think a few moments could breathe a little more. Yeah. So this was 17 minutes. I could see if you kind of took some time, and we would have to talk about it, but I would say like maybe 30 minutes maximum, and maybe closer, just a little bit more when we were a little too compressed. There were a couple moments that bugged me where they're singing a romantic duet in a shed, and then she says very quickly, because we kind of didn't have time, I'm not going to join you in death. I'm not. I'm out. I'm not killing myself. And then he's immediately mad, and that beat happens very quickly for me. I feel like I would like to spend like a minute on that to really watch him change. I don't know what Keith thinks about that, but
I agree. I think there are a few things that were slightly truncated. They didn't bother me per se in the production of it, but if there weren't a time limit, I could see it going to 23, 25 minutes and just breathe a little better. And like Stephen was saying, live with some of those beats just a little longer so the actors can process them and the audience can understand what they're processing.
So what is next for either the wedding night or you guys, or do you know yet?
Well, we were talking about it. We would like to now do the full-length show that's going to be all 3 poems. And Jana has a version of them already, I think.
Oh,
We
yeah,
certainly,
I wrote the book.
And so there's the first story that's probably shorter, like probably like 15 minutes. It's like an intro, yes. And then this one's the second one, and then the big story, which is kind of a love story with this guy who lives at the bottom of a lake, and the girl. That's the one that'll be an hour. So our thought is that we're going to try over the next year and expand it, and then hopefully find a theater maybe next summer or something like that can we can workshop it or something like that, because it would be it's worth sticking with. I think it's had a really good audience reaction.
It did. It truly did. Yes. Yeah. All right. Before I let you guys go, I'd love to give you each an opportunity to speak to burgeoning writers of musical theater, and see if there's anything that you words of advice or words of caution, or here's what I learned by anything in that. Do you have anything yet?
Well, first of all, with collaborators, make sure you're working with collaborators that not only challenge you, but that you like, because you're going to be working on these projects together, possibly for a long time, hopefully. And having both, you don't have to have the same vision, but complementary visions, so that you are all working toward the same thing, but hopefully you're challenging each other too and enjoying it while you do it. That's huge. And the other part is just doing it. You've got to write it and put it out there and get it in front of an audience. Working with actors and directors is essential, because it is a collaborative art. So that would be my advice. Find the right people and then do it, and really just make it happen. No one else is going to do it for you.
Right. Jana?
Well, as far as book writing, this is the first time I did it. And it's, well, for me, as far as language goes, English is not my first language. And in this area, it doesn't matter, which is really cool.
Oh, neat.
So if you want to do something theater-oriented or music-oriented, and I would also say, pick a story that you can see in your mind, because from the beginning, even before he even started writing music, he asked me, what do you see? What do you hear? What the music should be? And I tried as best I could to describe it, to give him some, guidance, but it was all in my head, and I was really excited about it. I really trusted the story, that it is good the way it is. And all the changes were done very mindfully. But I think picking the right story and believing in the story and having a really clear idea of what it's gonna be is good. Of course, being flexible, like Keith said. You can be militant about some things and give in other areas, and it's good. It's a victory, not a defeat, if you give in to a better idea than you have.
Good.
So,
Stephen, so the journey from being a fringe writer to being a Game of Thrones orchestrator.
Well, I would first off say I agree with both of them about what they said. When writing musical theater, finding a group like this, like NMI, is great, because both you and Elise work so hard getting the fringe shows on, and being around the community of writers is very encouraging. I just makes you feel like you're going to get out there and do it. I mean, I had a big push to write musical theater when I was 19, and then after a couple of years, didn't really work out, and I kind of started doing other things, but it always bugged me, like every year I must write musical theater. And it really coming back and doing NMI helped a lot, because every week it was like, oh, you're going to meet a new lyricist, you're going to work on it, and even if you don't like what you wrote, it doesn't really matter. It's like, at least you're writing. And that's the thing that really is important. And then and kind of like you say, like picking something that you want to write I think is very important, because there are many people that ask me about, they want to be a film composer, or they want to get into orchestration or any of that kind of stuff. And, that's very good as well. To do, I definitely think that you need to really like what you're doing. Like for me, I've actually always had the theater bug. So inevitably, the films are kind of cool, and you're quite famous, you make the money and stuff. But I've never personally really wanted that job. I mean, it's many hours behind the computer, always an employee to the director. And orchestration is kind of nice because you don't have all the major pressure. You need to go and listen to the orchestra, and it's very exciting. But pretty much just picking what you really believe in and you like, and that's it's been a great thrill writing this. And like Keith and Jana were amazing partners, and so yeah, try to find a good collaborator and find an idea you like, and just go write it.
Great. Well, congratulations on a great show and a very successful one. The wedding night.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thanks a lot.
So much.
Thanks very much.